Good evening, everyone. My name is Emmet Hollingshead. I'm the Young Fellow for Militarism and Human Rights here at FCNL. And over the past few months, I've been asked many times why I decided to take this position, why I decided to start working with FCNL. And so I thought about that a lot, and I went through several iterations of how I answered that question. And I think fundamentally, I always come back to my Quaker upbringing and the value that I learned to place on peace, on understanding, and on trying to follow your own moral compass, even when that process can be a long, time-intensive, and difficult one. As the Young Fellow for Militarism and Human Rights, a large part of my time is devoted to efforts to repeal the 2001 and 2002 authorizations for use of military force. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the background, the 2001 AUMF, passed in response to 9/11, authorized the invasion of Afghanistan and the war on terror. The 2002 AUMF authorized President Bush to invade Iraq. And these two pieces of legislation have steadily evolved over the years to become the legal foundation of the wars that the US fights today. One of my own earliest memories is of September 11th, 2001. I was in school, and very suddenly, all of the kids were told to go to the back of the building, wait in the lunchroom with the lights off. We could tell our teachers were upset, but we didn't know why, and no one would tell us what was going on. And as many of you probably know from experience in meeting for worship, getting 25 preschoolers to sit still and quiet in a room and do nothing is basically impossible. And so I spent the late morning of September 11th, 2001, goofing off with my friends and annoying the teachers like usual, completely unaware of the magnitude of what was going on around me. This year, September 11th, was significant for a different reason. September 11th, 2018 marked the first time that US citizens who had not yet been born at the time of the attacks on New York City and Washington, D.C. would be eligible to fight in the resulting wars. On that day, I reflected on the fact that I myself was too young at the time of the attacks to understand my world and the implications that that day would have. And now, young men and women are being sent to kill and die as a result of it. It can be disheartening to think that the war on terror seems so vast and has gone on for so long. But it's important, I think, to remember that peace is possible, and that peace is worth every ounce of energy and every single moment that we put into it. In 2002, I was 6 years old. I remember one particular day, must have been October or November, standing in the lobby of the Pittsburgh Friends Meeting House. I put on my jacket that I insisted I didn't need, but my mom's made me wear anyway. And I walked out the door holding a sign that said, "Don't bomb Iraq." Along with my moms and a whole contingent of Quakers from my meeting, we went downtown for an afternoon protest against the impending invasion. If our ultimate goal was to swing public opinion against the invasion, we were unsuccessful. But I remember coming home that day and telling my moms, that was so much fun. It was thrilling to be part of a group that believed so strongly in our ability to affect change and in our mission of peace. I remember leaving that protest truly inspired that I could be part of a movement for peace, even if that movement took years to achieve its goals, and even if it felt like we were constantly swimming against the tide. Today, 16 years later, and we're still swimming. It can be daunting to try to tackle a piece of legislation as complex as the AUMF, which has evolved into such a large problem. But if you look closely, you can see small victories that add up. You can see that shining light guiding us towards peace. Here in Washington, momentum is gathering for a fresh perspective on Afghanistan, and there's a growing consensus that peace is possible. This past summer, we saw the first formal nationwide ceasefire in that country since the 2001 invasion. For the youngest fighters on all sides, it marked the first days of peace in Afghanistan that they have ever known. Today, the United States holds fewer detainees at Guantanamo Bay than we have since the early 2000s. The incoming Congress is acutely aware of how much institutional authority over war-making powers they've let slip to the president, and they're preparing to take back control. The global war on terror, which in 2001 a president told us to ignore with childish naivete as it churned in the background, is being pushed to the forefront. And us here in this room and across the country with other FCNL members and donors and supporters and our allies, we're determined that our mission for peace, years in the making, will one day be realized. Thank you.